Welcome to the On the Contrary podcast. I'm Charlie Sykes. Who better to talk about the ongoing enshittification of social media, actually all media, other than our guest today, Kara Swisher, the host of the Pivot podcast and the author of, for those of you watching on YouTube, The Burn Book. Kara, first of all, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. Okay, Jeff fucking Bezos.
Jeff fucking Bezos. That's a good way to put it.
Can we just talk about this? I mean, let's start off with this, because sort of on one level, Bezos saying, "Hey, I want to talk about." I mean, what is the line, the directive that the Washington Post is out?
Personal liberty and
free markets.
Yeah.
I mean, who could possibly be against that? So translate that into English. What he's really doing.
I can, because personal liability isn't democracy, is it? Personal liability isn't justice. It isn't humanity. It isn't accountability. It's none of those things. It is, I want to do what I fucking want to do. That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about let gays be gays. He's not talking about let trans people be trans people. This is none of which he is saying. He's talking about, I want to do what I want to do because I get too much pushback, even though he gets almost no pushback whatsoever. And the second part, which is free markets, which means that let's let chemical companies spew things in the river. Let's let, I don't know what he's talking about there. And so, it's a toddler tantrum. Like this morning, my son, who is in potty training, was mad about something, and he was mad throughout the day and throughout the morning, getting him to school, and made his sister late to her school and everything else. And it was like that. That's what it reminds me of, is like, no, I want to do what I want to do, no matter what, except my son is 3 and Jeff Bezos is a man in his 60s.
Okay, so, somebody asked on one of the social media platforms, that one of the great puzzles is, what's the point of having fuck you money if you don't say fuck you? So who is he saying fuck you to right now?
All of us. All of us. He very much wants to go to space. He very much is in the business interest. He always has been. Let me just be clear. Jeff Bezos came from Wall Street. He did not come from this, like, I want to help, Coca-Cola, I want to teach the world to sing kind of people. He came from a business background. And so he wasn't typical. He was more conservative than other people of the time. He was older also. And so this is not unlike him. This is sort of like him more than you think. But what I think he's not a crusader for anything. I'm not even sure why he wanted to buy the Washington Post in the first place, because I think what newspapers like that, or at least the Post, was about accountability, right? I think ultimately to power. Yeah. And so he's part of power, and so he doesn't want accountability to power. And so that's where we are. It's billionaire propaganda is what it is.
Yeah. But at one point, he was sort of hands off, and we welcomed our new insect overlords, believing that billionaires were going to come to save us, and maybe at some part of his character he thought, I can be the new Katharine Graham.
No,
but the narrative has shifted, right? He's decided that
he was never.
He was never Katharine Graham. But who is he now? Does he say, I want to be more like Elon Musk?
That's correct.
Be more like, okay.
So I want nobody to tell me what to do, and I want to do what I want to do. And I'm living I'm having the longest midlife crisis of my life. I've left my wife. I have this other one who's obviously an acolyte to him. Very smart, but still just praises him all day long. And he wants to live the plush life. And so the plush life is this. And so owning a newspaper like this is, since it's become a nuisance to him and his efforts in business, he's going to make it into something that becomes an asset to his business interests. And that's what he's doing pretty clearly.
Okay, so now, again, I want to just back up, because people were saying, now, why would you be objecting to, having some editorial control? He certainly has the right to do that, and to talk about individual liberties and free markets. Basically, it sounds kind of like the Wall Street Journal editorial board. But he also did two things. He said that he would not allow contrary opinions. And again, the question mark is, what does that mean? And clearly forced out the opinion editor. I guess it's hard not to ask the question, why now, February 2025? What triggered this? Because you say he wants to live the plush life. He's got the plush life. He's got the biggest fucking boat in the world, right? So he doesn't need these. He's got the penis-shaped rockets. So
and a series of unfortunate shirts. He also has a series of unfortunate shirts.
A lot of unfortunate shirts. So February 2025, it feels like all the oligarchs are like going through something. I mean, in retrospect, where the iconic picture of our time really goes back to that Trump inauguration, where you have Mark Zuckerberg and you have Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and they're all lined up there, willing to kiss the ring. So this feels like we're having this conversation the night of the oligarchs in America, where something is happening to the people. You've been writing about these folks for decades. And their surge for wealth, their surge for power. I want to just dive into this. What's going on in their heads now?
Look, when they started, they were startups, right? I was with Jeff Bezos when he picked his office out for Amazon in a shitty section of Seattle. I was with him when he did that. He did not have a lot of money. He was seeking a lot of attention. I happened to be working for the Wall Street Journal, of all things. He definitely wanted to hang out with me because he wanted attention for his business. He was trying to really perfect a business, to change retail. And I do applaud him for that. Fine. That's really well done. But what they've done is translated, just simple business success into an idea that they know what's best for the rest of us, right? Since they're rich, they know better. And I think what's happened with them is Jeff particularly, and so did Mark, and so now has Elon, has gotten a lot of pushback for various things they've doing. In Jeff's cases, union busting and bad situation in the warehouses for poor people, for people who work there, for hourly workers, all manner of things. Did he get away with not paying taxes for a number of years? There's all kinds of things that he didn't like criticism. And I remember when there was a cover of, I think it was Barron's that called it Amazon.bomb. Right? Because the stock was way ahead of what it was doing. I didn't agree with it. I thought Amazon was going to be enormous, but he was incandescently angry at the media and he put it up on his wall, and he even referred to it recently, like he can't get over one bit of criticism. And so same thing with Mark Zuckerberg. We were made to behave in ways we didn't want to, even though they control everything. Right? These people control everything, and then they are victims, which is a really interesting thing. And so they just decided they don't have to put up with shit. And they look at someone like Elon Musk, who, by the way, has never put up with shit. So he's consistent he's crazier than ever, but he's always.
We'll get to him in a minute.
But they're like, oh, look, I can do that too. I don't have to pay lip service to the Kara Swishers of the world or critics on Wall Street or anybody else. I can just say a big fuck you. And what I thought Marty Barron,
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, he goes, it was only weeks ago. This was the legendary editor that Bezos hired and did an amazing job. It was only weeks ago the Post described itself as providing coverage for all of America, Barron wrote in a statement. Now its opinion pages will be opened only to some of America, those who think exactly as he does. Now, he is within his rights to do this. He can do whatever he wants. He can cover it with Nutella and lick it up and down all day. But he can't pretend this is anything but what it is, which is a wholesale grabbing of a legendary brand, who's a Ben Bradley, of Kay Graham, of these people who fought the power, and not pretend he isn't a suck up to power, which is precisely what he is.
Is it all? So how do we break this down? There is the tantrum, but there's also the Trump effect there. That they've made a decision that in the era of Donald Trump, they are going to bend the knee. They are going to suck up. How much of this is just transactional? Like, okay, Mr. Trade, well, part of it, as you point out, a lot of it's just sort of ego driven. There's a little bit of hubris here, but a lot of it is transactional. They have business with the government, and this is the coin that in which they are going to be paying that.
It's a coin-op president, so that's what they're going to play. And look at Apple's shareholders just decided to keep their DEI things in place, and now Trump is threatening Tim Cook, even though shareholders decided, the people who own the company want to keep it. In America, we should be able to do that, correct?
Yeah, free market thing, right.
But now Tim is going to have to do some things. He's going to have to pretzel himself because of the legal challenges to DEI, which is fine. But the shareholders have spoken.
Yeah.
And the owners can't do what the owners want. So this is exactly, every accusation is a confession with these people, right? Honestly, it's really something to watch. If Apple shareholders decided they wanted DEI, let them have Costco shareholders, but instead the Trump
administration.
Kind
of free market thing, right?
That's correct. That is correct. So why isn't that
free market, free peoples?
But they don't they want a free market for themselves and not for the rest of us. They want free speech for themselves and not the rest of us.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious to know exactly how they interpret it, because the words on the surface are kind of anodyne, and I guess the question is, okay, does this mean the Washington Post is going to editorialize against Donald Trump's tariffs when he launches a trade war?
Maybe.
What will they be saying about the embrace of Russia? Okay, so obviously we've gotten like 10 minutes into this conversation without asking the big one. Kara Swisher, do you still want to buy the Washington Post?
I do not.
Okay.
He's just thrown mildew all over it. Or what's the thing that you can't get off? Mildew, right? Mildew.
Yeah.
This guy is intent on wrecking the legacy of of the Graham family and Ben Bradley. And I think he's going to lose everybody who's, the good and the bad. There's lots of changes that needed to be made there, obviously. And by the way, guess who's been presiding over the decline for the past 10 years? Mr. Jeff Bezos, right? So if he's such a good businessman, why did the Post miss every single friggin' turn in the digital? They don't have any podcasts. They don't really have events. They don't have any AI that's worth its salt that could be really useful. They haven't been able to do what the New York Times.
They've got some good reporters.
They have good reporters, but they were there before. So he hasn't done a thing to make this business survive in a digital environment. Nothing interesting. Nothing like the New York Times has done. The New York Times has improved its business drastically.
Which is weird.
All this guy has done is nothing. Absolutely nothing. Okay, and then he blames the company that he's owned since 2013. It's really, he's such a whatever. I can't even. No, I have no interest.
Okay, because just last month, you were talking to New York Magazine about why you wanted to buy it back then. So tell me about your original thinking, why you wanted to put together a group to buy it, but before it sounds like you believe the total enshittification of the paper that's already taken place.
This is the last. Oh, okay. This is what he's done.
But in December, you still thought it was worth doing?
I was pretty upset about what he did around the Harris thing, not because he doesn't have to endorse Harris, but how he did it, and then he blamed the Post itself for his own shitty business decision, and he's the one that lost all those subscribers, nobody else, not the reporters, but he blamed the reporters, which was even worse. So I had an idea that has a heavy use of AI in the good way, an ability to coalesce news in a singular brand, or that, the New York Times is all made here. What about a brand for all of America that really did have a lot of voices, did have news, brought news to people using technology in a way that's a smarter way to do it, that's useful to people, as opposed to just sticking AI onto everything, even if we don't want it, right? A lot of that is happening right now, largely because the people giving us AI have never created a news product ever in their lives, right? For example. And so what is it that would be useful? Obviously you're going to have to make cuts. There was no question you had to make cuts. You'd have to make better deals with the unions at the Washington Post. You'd have to figure out what readers wanted. I was always thinking of the audience. What does the audience want? And I was taking my cues from things I've done and a lot of media entrepreneurs have done. We've never been growing faster. I mean, we're growing like crazy, and it's because we're providing a product people want. So I would have been thinking a lot around the product and everything else, and not as a personal propaganda device, which is the way he's looking at this. He doesn't care about audience. Same thing with Musk and Twitter. He doesn't care about audience. He cares about an influence platform for himself, and that's what Bezos is doing. He's not making a thing people want. He's making a thing for himself, essentially. And so I had all kinds of ideas. I had all manner of ideas. But I definitely, I think he's taken it you can see the direction he's going in, and it's a bad one. He's not going to sell it either. He doesn't want to sell it. He wants it as an influence platform.
All right, but then what will the Washington Post look like a year from now, 2 years from now? I'm thinking of some entities that still have their same masthead, like, I don't know, Newsweek.
It'll be MySpace. It'll be MySpace of newspapers. That's what it'll be. Remember MySpace?
That is, barely. It'll be MySpace of newspapers. So, Kara Swisher, you are one of the world's greatest living experts on Elon Musk. Can you explain what's going on with him right now? I have why do you say no longer?
I haven't talked to him in a year or more. Yeah.
Okay, but you know the guy. You know the guy who ended up at the CPAC stage. Wielding the chainsaw over the weekend. The word hubris does keep coming up. What do you think is going through with his mind right now? What is happening with him? And I hope that the word ketamine is going to show up somewhere in the next 5 minutes in our conversation.
Allegedly.
Okay, well, allegedly. Yeah.
I am no doctor, but he seemed to be on something. Like it felt like rather, it's so interesting. We talk about ketamine or other drugs. We try to be very, very careful. If someone's obviously drunk, we always say, "Oh, they look drunk," right? Kind of thing. He looked like he had some sort of substance, something happening with him,
or he's just not getting any sleep, or he's just
else, it's a combination. He's high in his own supply.
Drunk on
He's
ego.
high on his own supply, whatever it happens to be.
Okay.
I do think the Wall Street Journal articles about his drug use were absolutely 100% accurate. Let me just say that from what I've heard and talked to people. So I think it's escalated. It looks like it's escalated. But, if he says, I think he made a joke. If it's working for you, it's working for you. So fine, you let him do whatever he wants. I'm a free market.
Is it working? Okay. Is it working for him in the sense? Does he know what he is doing right now?
Yes, he does.
He does know what he does.
He's
okay.
Charlie, the true believer person, right? Yeah. I think he actually thinks I have the notion that he thinks he's living in a video game. And he's said this before, by the way. Okay. And that he is the main player.
Okay.
Is he? He would say, is he? He's told, he did a famous interview with me where he said we were in a simulation. I think he thinks he's in a video game and he's the main player. That's why he can't stop talking. Like in a cabinet meeting, he was like he didn't hardly let the president speak today, right? He's like talking and talking and talking and talking. So he thinks he's the main character. 2, I think he really truly believes, and he's been this way before. One time when I interviewed him, he said, if Tesla doesn't survive, humanity is doomed. What kind of egomaniac you have to be? Yeah. If Charlie says,
I feel that way about my newsletter. That's the end of Western civilization,
exactly,
or perhaps all humanity.
Right. So he talked in these kind of dramatic terms because I think he must be so bored with his life that he can't. He needs to have a constant level of excitement around it, and so he's created this drama around himself that he is here to save. You can hear the words he uses: save. Civilization is doomed. America is going to go bankrupt, blah, blah. America's not going bankrupt. It's not. He likes to create this level of drama. And the other thing he does, he's become more mendacious than ever in terms of pretending he wants to make cuts and not noting, as the Washington Post did today in an excellent article, $38 billion in contracts with the federal
One of the great moochers of all time.
Moocher.
I mean, when it comes down to it, here's this guy, I am the scourge of big government, and it turns out I have been feeding at the breast of big government, for
a long time, and it saved him.
For a very, very long time.
By the way, especially Tesla, which is the center of his wealth. Tesla would not exist without that loan from the federal government today. It would not. He'd be some washed up entrepreneur trying whatever dumb thing he was trying. And so I think he's such a hypocrite to himself, and I think he lies to himself on a daily basis. Like his money is good, other people's aren't, like for cancer research, et cetera.
Okay, let's go back to that question, though, about whether he knows what he's doing. He may know what he thinks he knows what he is doing, saving humanity, saving the country, and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But as you watch the kinds of cuts that he's making, does he understand the consequences and the damage? Now, there was a moment at the cabinet meeting today that I think you posted about it, where he's going, we're going to get some things wrong. Like, for example, when we fired all the people who were going to protect you from Ebola. Like, whoa, wait. The flesh-eating disease, the one thing that I think that most people on the planet would be terrified of. He sort of blithely says, yeah, we were moving so fast that we eliminated some of our protections against Ebola. So I guess in terms of the substance and the politics, does he know the damage that he is doing? Because one of the strangest dynamics here is that, Republicans are beginning, I think it's beginning to dawn on them that he is a political liability. Maybe Trump is thinking that as well. Maybe.
Doesn't seem like it.
And well, so far it doesn't seem like it. So talk to me a little bit about the Trump-Elon Musk relationship.
Let me say, he doesn't care, Charlie.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
All of these tech bros, these certain ones of them. Well, look, Bezos and Zuckerberg are all about are all about shareholder value and their value. They, again, if Kamala Harris was president, they'd be listening to Charlie XCS and making us call them they them. They would do whatever it takes, whatever it fucking. He'd be wearing like whatever the trend happens to be. He'd be wearing jeans from Kendrick Lamar. They'd all be wearing jeans and dancing that dance, whatever. They would do whatever it takes. Those two, like they have no values whatsoever. Okay, none that I can discern.
This is important insight.
Well, they don't. They just, whatever's good for them, they will do. They will suck up. And again, in 4 years is a different, if Pete Buttigieg is president, they'll all become gay. I don't know. Whatever. Like, because whatever. They'll do whatever it takes. In Musk's case, and this is paying him a compliment, I actually believe he believes this because he's a megalomaniac, because he believes he is a Jesus-like figure. And we used to joke about this. You know, at one point when I said, well, Trump's going to ban Muslims. And he's like, no, he's not. He's just saying it. And I said, no, he's going to do it. He said it. I think he's going to do it. No, he's not. I said, the guy's been a racist forever. Like, this guy hates immigration. He's been consistent. Trump has been consistent on this issue. I said, he's a racist. He doesn't like Muslims. He's going to do it. And we went back and forth, and he said, he's not going to do it, and I can change his mind. And I said, well, Jesus, good for you. But you can't really change an old man racist. It's not, believe me, I have relatives. It doesn't work in any way. And so we went back and forth. And when he did it, I wrote him, I said, see, I told you. And he's like, oh, you were right. And I was like, I was right. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And so I think he believes he is critical. And I think he really does believe this. I don't think on the side he says something else. That he is the savior of humanity. I
can accept that. But what I don't get still is the relationship with Trump from Trump's point of view. Now, Trump finds him useful. He gave him a lot of money. He did a lot of things. On the other hand, the conventional wisdom, which I buy into, is that in the end, there can only be one. That when you are dealing with the two megalomaniacs, at some point, something's got to give.
Right. I would assume so. But actually, Trump's been very deft. I think of all these people, Trump's the smartest, right? I think, one, he needs the money so he can threaten other Congress people with primarying. That's critical. Right. Here's my junkyard dog who's going to bite your ass if you cross me. And trust me when I tell you, I got 6 more lined up behind him. I got Nicole Shanahan. I got the rest of them. So if you fuck with me, I'm going to take you out. They're crazy. So I've got money. I got the money and the means. He also runs Twitter. He has all kinds of manner of suing people. He's coming after you. That's one. 2, it takes the attention off of him, right? He can do everything about Trump right now is distraction. DEI and plane crashes. Honestly, we've gone from DEI in aviation to DAF, dumb as fuck. How many airline mishaps have there happened since, right? So I'm going to blame everything on DEI, right? That sort of will lose its thing, especially since now there's airline crashes and there weren't before. So let's bring back DEI, please, for the love of God. So he does the distraction stuff, and Elon is the ultimate distraction for people because everyone turns to him and aim their fire at. And you see this in the polling. People like Trump, but they hate Elon. So he's like you know how Hillary Clinton was kind of the lightning rod for Bill Clinton? You remember that? She got all the shit. He did not, even though he did all the bad stuff, right? And I was not a fan of Bill Clinton, I'll be honest. I like Hillary, not a fan of Bill's. But everything Bill did badly, Hillary Clinton got the blame for. So he's a lightning rod for him, and that's perfect. He can take it.
All right, so this is an interesting point because I am trying to think ahead to when there's a potential breakup that if in fact all of the cuts and the slashes become absolutely politically toxic, radioactive and everything, and that Trump can say, look at all those headlines, Musk fires this, Musk does this, Musk does this. He said that was him, not me. The problem, which I actually can see the reptilian instinct at work there, to basically say, the king gets rid of the prime minister because he just had bad advice. But what's clear is that Elon Musk, the savior of humanity, has also gone rogue. He's making endorsements. He's doing things. He's conducting foreign policy without checking or clearing it with anybody, which again raises the question, how does Donald Trump get rid of a problem like Elon Musk? I've asked this question before. He can fire anyone else. he could flick off Marco Rubio. He can end JD Vance with one post.
What an astonishing, dickless person that guy's. He always was. What am I talking about?
Well, yes, he and self-gelding, continues apace.
Oh, completely.
But how do you get rid of Elon Musk? I mean, Elon Musk is kind of becoming a cult figure himself. He's got all the money.
The negatives are so high on this guy. It doesn't really matter that he has all the negatives. He's become a Bond villain to a lot of people. And so I think when you see the political implications of it, that if the link between them is so tight, everyone's like, look, I like Trump, but this fucking asshole that he's given us. I think that's where the rubber meets in terms of what power he can continue to wield. There's also an attraction that Trump has for shit stirrers, right? He really does. He loves them. And I think in this case, he likes to see, you put a bunch of crabs in a box and you see what happens. That's what he did at this cabinet meeting, right? So he just wants to see, like when he goes, is anyone here not like Musk? Of course there are, like at least 3/4 of the people don't like Musk. Even Kash Patel, that guy is like resisting Elon Musk, right?
Yeah, what's with that? Okay, now that was I did not have that on my bingo card.
Well,
Kash Patel would be the one guy to say don't answer.
Yeah, you get to a certain amount of power, and this guy's telling me what to do. Are you kidding me? Right? At some point, they want to run what they want to run, and believe me, that's a completely normal thing that these cabinet secretaries want to. They finally get to the place; they're not going any further. I can tell you that. And so they want to run what they want to run, and instead they got to listen to this guy, like who doesn't know anything. At least Kash Patel thinks he knows about the FBI. Elon Musk knows nothing, right? So I think but they're not going to say it. And Trump, of course, made them sit there and say they like him.
The rituals of humiliation, which he loves that. Yeah,
it was like bore on the floor. It was bore on the floor is what it was. And so Trump has got this sick interest in stuff of humiliation, and I think it works. He's the perfect heavy, and when he'll turn on him. When Elon turns on him, that could happen, right?
And that will be messy.
That will be messy, but it doesn't have to happen. Everyone's like wishing for this, and I thought that might be the case. But Elon's just enough beta to Trump that it works, right? If he goes full alpha on him, that'll be a problem. But he's just enough beta, so he's annoying Susie Wiles. But he's not annoying Trump.
The chief of staff. Okay, correct. So there are these stories out there, and I don't know whether they're apocryphal or not, that seem to suggest that Elon Musk says in private the guy's a complete idiot and everything.
He's told me that.
He thinks, and he still thinks that, but he's figured out, he's cracked. The code that he's cracked is, if I just suck up to him and say nice things, he won't pay any attention to what I'm doing. He'll have no idea what I'm doing. So the cracking the code is, you just suck up to Donald Trump, figure he's a complete idiot, he's a moron, and he's going to let me do it. So you think that's true? Is that his mindset?
I think behind the scenes, he did. Listen, I don't know how he's changed, because I think he does have some respect for Trump. I do think he has some affection for Trump. At the time I talked to him, he had none. He thought Trump was an idiot, like as dumb as a box of hammers kind of thing. And so I never thought Trump was an idiot. I've never thought that. I thought he was a rather clever person, right? In many ways, not a loathsome
I'm a skeptic.
Person. I think he's got as you said, reptilian sense of survival, a cockroach-like personality. And you can insult cockroaches all you want, but they've been around and will be here long after we are, right? That kind of thing.
Right.
And so there's a level of that in him. And I think with Musk, it would have to be, I don't know what could happen. Like, as long as he's useful, Trump will keep him around. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right.
No question.
Let's just step back from, because I know you've given a lot of thought to the future of the media in general. Seems as if, like, at the moment you and I are speaking, it feels like the twilight of the media in pretty dramatic terms, where you have the old media. I mean, you have the assault on media rights, the threats against the media coming from the government, the lawsuits against them. The White House now saying it's going to pick the correspondents that cover us. We're going to be doing all of that. People are saying now is the time to stand up behind the independent media. But the independent media seems to be, I don't know, deassembling itself in real time, whether you're talking about the Washington Post or you're talking about ABC or CBS, all of these things. Right. So it feels very different. I'm coming to a question here, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
It feels very, very different than 2017, where the media really felt that this was its moment to stand up for democracy, to push back against Donald Trump. Now it seems to be flirting on the edge of irrelevancy and confusion. It's, well, you tell me.
No,
You
I
tell
think
me.
it's just a different media. Look, you're seeing all this incredible, like yourself, all this media entrepreneurship, right? Everything we do now gets, hundreds of thousands of watches, and we spend almost nothing doing it. It's a very, I've been at the media entrepreneurship for many years now, obviously, and we've made a lot of money with all the various things we did. It's just a different media. It isn't these big, giant ocean liners. It's these small, little, faster boats that go around and make all kinds of trouble. And I think what you're doing, what I'm doing, what all manner of people are doing on the left and the right is really interesting. Even, look, I'm going to pay a compliment. Ben Shapiro's stuff, I'm not a fan of his content, but boy, is he a good entrepreneur. Interesting stuff. Don't like the tone of his stuff, but I can see what he's doing. He's creating a separate media organization because he was zeroed out from all the others. And so you're seeing a lot of that. And I think it's actually a great time to be in media. I think it's very much, we just started putting full pivots on YouTube, and now we're up to 200,000 views for every one of them. Like in seconds, suddenly we have 100,000 subscribers, and that's just in 2 weeks, right? People are dying for great content. And I did one with Laverne Cox, and 2 million people on TikTok. 2 million. I couldn't have gotten that on any cable network. I couldn't have gotten it in the Washington Post. And so it's a different media environment where actually you can make some money, and they're smaller and more direct and much more impactful. I would say you and I have more impact than the Washington Post has now, like by far.
Well, obviously, I want to embrace this enthusiastically, but let me give you the other side of it, because this is true, and there is this opportunity, but there's also the downside, which is that we are also then all creating our own information bubbles, our own echo chambers. We are preaching to the choir, right? That a lot of these media. Well, but it feels like a lot of media is now engaging in fan service, and as a result, the divides that we're getting are intensifying because of this, because there is no common, where do Americans come together to have a common conversation?
I don't think
or share common information.
I don't think it's been there since Walter friggin' I don't think it's been there. I think it's been a lie. Look, I used to argue when I was at Columbia. I went to Columbia Journalism School. I wish I had taken that money and bought Apple stock, but I didn't. When I was there, I used to argue that a lot of the decision making in news was by a bunch of, no insult, Charlie, I have 3 sons, a bunch of white guys on the Upper East Side of New York, right?
Yeah,
it was like the New York Times people, the Times people, the New York Times, Time Magazine. So was that particularly of the people? I don't think most people were reading these things. I think the danger is that people get their information from a Facebook, and the information comes in a flood, or podcasts or social media. And so I don't think they were paying attention before in great amounts. There wasn't a commonality. There was less of a commonality that you think. What's changed is that everyone has too much information now via social media, and stuff. So it's like a flood versus a desert before. I think it was a desert. For sure.
Okay. So there is the flood. There's no question about it. So people are searching out trusted sources, right? It's like, okay, I can't handle all this. I don't know what's true. I have to go to this site or this site. So we used to talk about the attention economy. That seems like last year. Now it's the what? It's the trust economy.
Yeah, it's trusted people. I mean, I don't know about you, but I get stopped 5 times a day on the streets by people. That never happened. And I've worked for the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post. Now I get stopped, you get recognized. There's so many ways of reaching people that you can have influence far beyond your cost, right? I don't need, now look, here's where it suffers. Is accountability journalism, like what the Post did today with the $38 billion.
Which was good journalism.
Good journalism. Like that is expensive no matter. And that we have to figure out. How do we keep the ProPublicas in business, or whatever is just how do we keep that kind of journalism, which is to me accountability journalism? How does that get paid for? And that's always been a loss leader, no matter how you slice it. It's not white people. I was just interviewing Mark Cuban the other day, and we were talking about this Post thing, and he goes, if great journalism was so valuable to people, why isn't ProPublica the biggest thing in the world? It's still great. He goes, it's still amazing journalism, but it's not that big because there's not an audience for it. And so certain stories will break through, but not as a business. It's much harder because of the way you do a business. So we've got to figure out more ways to do accountability journalism in a cost-effective way. And I doubt it will ever make that much money, right?
Okay,
I doubt it.
Well, that's right. It's always been a lost leader. Okay, so tell me about Mark Cuban.
Yeah, I love him.
But tell me about Mark Cuban, because
he goes, I'm jumping off a bridge, I swear to God.
Well, what do you think? What's in his future? He's all over blue sky. He showed up at the principal's first conference. You think he wants to run for something? He hasn't taken the red pill.
I have known him for so long. And let me tell you, he was kind of a jerk. I was like, you're such a jerk. I used to always say, stop being such a jerk when I met him, because he was such arrogant. Yeah. He was so arrogant, but he was younger. And he's really evolved over the many years into an adult, right? Into an adult person. I think he's a free market person, absolutely, but in a way that's fair to people and doesn't kick people in the teeth. I think Jeff Bezos is a kick people in the teeth free market person, which is very different. He calls himself a compassionate capitalist. I think that's what or something like that.
So what does he want to be when he grows up? What
doesn't want to run for office.
Right now?
I have had.
You don't think so?
I have had off the record. I can tell you, I know he says it publicly that he doesn't want to. He is polling very well. People like him. I think he's the genuine, real deal. And he also cops to mistakes he's made in the past, right? There was some management issues with some of his things. But he also will push back if he doesn't if people give him a hard time, he'll push back. He'll go. He doesn't get bent out of shape by criticism. He's a strong person. And he also will listen to people, like when he's like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way, kind of thing, which makes him an adult, right? As opposed to these toddlers, these men who are in a state of arrested development.
Yeah.
And so I really like him. I don't know. I said, what can I do to convince you to run? I always am like, I would love him to run, largely because I think he could win. I think he could absolutely win. I think he'd be very good at it. And I think he'd get great people. He also knows what he doesn't know, which is an unusual trait among these people. Extremely. He looks for experts. I think the stuff he's focused in on, which I think he's correct, is people's lives, the economy, how to make them better, cost of drugs. He doesn't want to play in the culture game because it's a lose, it just makes people angry for some reason. And he just wants to talk about respect for hardworking people, I think. And not just, respect for hardworking rich people too. Like he's not I only like the working class, or
he's not an AOC type. No, you made an interesting observation there, though.
She's changed, hasn't she?
Well, she's developing. So as the other tech bros become more infantile, he's becoming more of a grown-up, which is an interesting distinction.
It's called becoming mature and an adult, rather than I want to do what I want to do, and that's the way it is. And by the way, let me just tell you, Jeff Bezos gets to do whatever he wants. It's his. He bought it. But just because let me just make this clear, just because he's rich, he's not right. He's just rich. That's all. Yeah. He's just, he's so poor.
But who's going to tell him?
I do. He's so poor. He's so poor, all he has is money. That's all I ever say about these people. It's my phrase. That's all they are. They just have money. That's all. Otherwise,
sad.
Yeah, it is sad.
Kara Swisher, thank you so much for coming on the
Charlie.
podcast.
I
always enjoy our conversations.
See, look, I love what you're doing. You and I probably don't agree on a raft of things, right? But it's an ability to have a discussion and get through it. And I think what they're doing is putting people who have normal disagreements in buckets that nobody wants to be in. And I do believe the populace feels the same way. And you're starting to hear it that's why these Republican Congress people want to blame it on some liberals that they're ruining their meetings. No. That's getting out of the way of voters, to me, is the first sign that you're a loser, right? Telling voters you don't want to listen to them no matter how much. And that's what these billionaires, they cannot hear an ounce of criticism without feeling like a victim and then slapping you away, just like my kid did this morning, and saying, no, I don't want to, no, and then sitting on the porch, that kind of thing. But again, he's 3 and they're not.
Yeah, which is sad. Yeah. So thank you all for listening to today's edition of the To the Contrary podcast. I'm Charlie Sykes. We do this several times a week because we have to remind ourselves that we are not crazy.